Hello, SGD, Sacred Geometry Decoded, and in this video, because it's going to be an important lead up to some follow-ons where we're looking at the math and the geometry in the Great Pyramid. And so, firstly, the question I want to address here is how high was the Great Pyramid? So there we see the pyramid as it is now. There are very few casing stones left, and the top piece of that is missing. So these are some older shots of people standing on top of a Great Pyramid. You see the Khafre Pyramid, which still has portions of the casing stones left on there, and again we see Khafre in the back, Khafre Pyramid in the background, but this is the top of the Great Pyramid. There's another shot. So what we have is that firstly, several of the courses of stone have been lost with time, but also the casing stones, and so just get an idea. So it's an important feature how high the pyramid is, especially to try and get a very precise number, because that will lead to all the math, all the important geometry, geodesic data, all of that lovely stuff in the pyramid. To get that as precise as possible, we have to get a very precise height of how high the Great Pyramid was. That's how it is now, and in the past, well, we had the casing stones coming to a pinnacle. There have been other hypotheses in regards to what was on the top, including spheres and all sorts of things, just on the basis of that every pyramid in Egypt has a true pyramid shape. Perhaps the top capstone was either coated in gold or had a golden pinnacle. We don't really know this, but I would say that the other ideas and theories with these exotic peaks on the top just doesn't fit in with every pyramid across Egypt. Even so, for instance, the smaller ones, we found capstones, pyramidions, next to every other pyramid, and they all seem to be a pyramid shape without some sort of like a ball or some of these other without any evidence, I would say. So I would, unless evidence turns, well, that's great, but there is no evidence that there was this exotic peak to there. But so if we can get an idea of the height. Now this is the published 1925 determination of exact size and orientation of the Great Pyramid of Giza, J.H. Cole survey. In this survey, he also references Petrie's data. So he's measured the base of the pyramid and so for instance, north 755.428 feet, and then underneath we have EGS, or Egyptian Government Survey, Petrie's data, and you can see how J.H. Cole and also the Egyptian Government Survey are in very, very close agreement what the base of the pyramid is. Because we have some capstones left, we can get a good idea of the slope. And for instance, here he has the because each side of a pyramid has a slight variation. The south side, or the longer side, is 20 centimeters longer, 19.6 centimeters longer than the northern side, and this would affect the angle, the slope angle of the pyramid. So we see it's somewhere between 51 degrees and 51 minutes down to about 51 degrees and 48 minutes. But with this data we can, okay, it's also worth noting the height. So he has the height of the pyramid at 481.133 feet plus or minus 0.583 feet. And these slope angles that he's shown here, as he says, is the height and slope of the faces of a pyramid are based on Petrie's data. So J.H. Cole did a survey of the base, and then these other figures, the slope and the height, is based on Petrie's observations. And that would give the pyramid a height of 481.133 feet plus or minus 0.583 feet. So, but because I want to examine the geometry and try and find as precise as we can, I want to propose a different. I'll be in future, because I'll be using these surveys, and then it's very important to have an accurate height, and just to explain that and have that as the basis for all the others. So Petrie's height would put it at 481.133 feet. That's 146.649 meters, plus or minus 0.583 feet, which is 17.77 centimeters, or 0.1777 meters. However, I'm going to propose, and I'll be using this as the basis, that the height of a pyramid, and again it's very, very small, but it's just important to have a standard, and I'll be in future working off the height of a pyramid being 480.956 feet. Again, very small difference, but again important to getting the proper proportions, or 146.5954 meters. And the reason I'll be, next up I'll explain how I got to there. But for instance, this is just an illustration of buildings throughout time, and this pyramid here in the center is a Great Pyramid. You can see it's slightly higher than the Khafre Pyramid, and it was only really with the for thousands of years the pyramid was the tallest building in the world, and only in the last couple centuries really. So for instance, that's the Washington Monument, 555 feet, our Great Pyramid of 480.9 feet, and then you can see just a comparison of various buildings. Of course, now we've eclipsed that with skyscrapers, but just to also give an idea, this is Heron Tower in London, 756 feet high to the top of a mast, but the building itself has 46 floors. So if you take the Heron Tower and lean it on its side, so the base, the southern side of the Great Pyramid, the longest side, is 756.072 feet, or 230.45 meters. So this skyscraper, which in any, most cities of the world, with apart from some of the major financial centres, would just like tower over the rest. So this massive building gives you the height. And Arena Tower in London, that's 45 floors, and that's 149 meters, or 489 feet. Now, because the Arena Tower, the floors go right to the very top, as where Heron Tower is 756 feet, because we're including the mast in there. So if you were to put Arena Tower next to the Heron Tower, you can see how the floors, so that's just adding a mast to the Arena Tower. And different buildings will have, each floor would have a different height. For instance, this is a residential building. The ceiling height would probably be a little bit lower so that they could fit more floors in to get more floor spaces, where other more prestigious buildings would have higher roofs. So generally speaking, a 50-story building would be the height of the Great Pyramid, though that would change depending on, but so we see the Heron Tower gives you the base, and if you were to put the Arena Tower against the Great Pyramid, it would be 8 feet higher, so essentially the same. So these, just to give a perspective just how big it is. But how did I get to this particular height? So we have Petrie's height of 146.649 meters, give or take 6 points, so just call that 7 inches, or 17.77 centimeters. Now, how I arrived at this specific height is, so we have the Great Pyramid, the 7:11 proportions, which is generally used, would give it, so the base of the pyramid, 440 Egyptian royal cubits at the base, or 280 Egyptian royal cubits high, 7:11. But what is a cubit? So this is one of the older cubit rods. It's in the Turin Museum. The Egyptian cubit was from the tip of the elbow to the tip of a finger. That's just a general use for the general term for what a cubit is. However, unlike the Babylonian or the Greek or the modern imperial English cubit, they had a different method of dividing it up. So, for instance, 4 fingers, or the width of your palm, 4 fingers. So 7 palm or 28 fingers divides the cubit up. That's not too important for the moment. But so this, going back to the we found cubit rods, and Egypt's been studied widely in the oldest buildings, the Old Kingdom. What we have is a cubit of somewhere between 0.523 to 0.524 meters. But we need to be more specific. So we're going back to, we're using the J.H. Cole and the Petrie data. Dorner and other, in more recent times, using very modern, very super accurate equipment, have essentially confirmed these older surveys. And I'm referencing these older surveys because there was more of a pyramid intact, and at the time, such as at Petrie, they had done excavations looking at the sockets and other features. So these measurements have withstood the test of time, but also they were done where there was more, there'd been less removal of material and less wear and tear by so-called restoration and tourist activity. So using the J.H. Cole survey, each site is slightly different, and now it's generally said that the Egyptian royal cubit is pi over 6 meters, which would be 0.523599 meters. There's a lot of, this would relate to the meter second cubit, as we see here, the seed of life and those connections. But because each site is different, and working first off the basis of pi over 6 meters, we see how the northern side of the shortest is not exactly 440, but 439.7, and the longer side is 440.128. But from that we can find an average. So we measure the perimeter of the Great Pyramid and divide it by 1760, and working on the J.H. Cole, that would give us a cubit of 0.523555 meters, which is 44 microns, or 0.044 millimeters difference. That's the margin of error from exactly pi over 6 meters, well within standards in acceptable measures. Even modern skilled engineering, that sort of tolerances would be well within acceptable. I've seen a lot of funny things of people talking about various in regards to the pyramid, but it's not just the cubit, right? It's not just the base of a pyramid. We can confirm the existence of the Egyptian royal cubit throughout the pyramid. So for instance, there is the Grand Gallery. Now each shelf here is one Egyptian royal cubit wide and one Egyptian royal cubit high, and the passageway between that is 2 Egyptian royal cubits at that pi over 6 meters. So the Grand Gallery is just one aspect that confirms the Egyptian royal cubit. The length in the King's Chamber, we see the same thing using that measurement. We find that it is 10 Egyptian royal cubits wide and 20 Egyptian royal cubits long. The cubit is just, it's confirmed. A lot of shenanigans and sort of trying to place things to make it fit a certain preconceived belief, but we have the evidence. It's verified not just in the Great Pyramid, other pyramids, other temples. It just is. It's all over the place. So using the data to get an exact measurement, 0.52355 meters. That's 44 microns from pi over 6 meters. So this is what I'll be using just to confirm the height. J.H. Cole, based on his survey, the cubit would be 0.52355 meters. Mathew Flinders Petrie, using his data as well, we would get exactly the same. Not exactly the same, but by the time we get to those last of those decimal places, we're talking hundreds and thousands of a micron, so well beyond acceptable margins of error. So there we come back to the Great Pyramid and working off that 7 to 11 proportion, which can also be found in the Meidum Pyramid and some other capstone pyramidions found. This geometry is not exclusive to the Great Pyramid. That would make the average base length 440 Egyptian royal cubits. 7 to 11 makes it 280 Egyptian royal cubits high. Multiply that by 0.523555 meters, and we get a height of the Great Pyramid at 146.594 meters, or 480.9 5.956 feet. So the question of how high was the Great Pyramid originally, based on Petrie's data using the surviving casing stones and being able to very accurately survey the base length of the pyramid, he would put that at 481.133 feet, plus or minus, let's just call that half a foot. So therefore, we have a range of 1 foot from in these heights. But as I'll be looking at the various important geometric mathematical constants and how they apply, this would also be important to trying to be as precise as we can in regards to other observations of a pyramid based on the well-accepted survey data, finding the average base length, from that finding the cubit of pi over 6 meters would be 0.523.599 meters. Both the Petrie and the J.H. Cole survey gives the same number of 0.52355 meters, so 44 microns. That's the thinnest human hair difference. And we can, again, the cubit in the Great Pyramid, other pyramids, other sites, it has been established surviving cubit rods. So inside and outside we find the cubit, as we saw in the Grand Gallery, the 1 cubit, 2 cubits wide, and also each of those shelves 1 cubit high. In other parts, other artifacts that have been found, but for instance the King's Chamber, again throughout the pyramid. So with that baseline of a cubit of 0.523555 meters, working on the 7 to 11 proportions, in future videos where I'll be re-examining older work, but trying to refine and being as accurate as possible. I'll be working on the idea, or again based on the evidence and the calculations as I've shown here. So this measurement that I've come to, 146.5954 meters or 180.956 meters, falls within Petrie's calculations. It meets with the internal and external features, and again will be very important. So we'll be looking at the various constants, pi, phi, and trying to refine instead of rounding off the measurements of a pyramid, which is very often done, by including the discrepancies, by including the so-called construction errors, there is a deeper level, and we can refine 99.9% accuracy to a much higher level by being as accurate as we can working on the base. So I know this is very it's a very small interest, I suppose, but when it comes to studying the Great Pyramid or also other parts of Egypt, to try and get this down to as precise as we can, based on the fact that how it connects to other parts in Egypt as well. So Sacred Geometry Decoded, I'll be re-examining mathematical, geometric, astronomical information embedded in the pyramids, not just the Great Pyramid, but not just the Three Giza pyramids, but also the others, including Meidum, the Red Pyramid, the Bent Pyramid, and using this data, and especially of the cubit of 0.523555 up to pi over 6 meters. Again, that's the thinnest human hair difference between these, but because this is what the calculations have shown based on both the Petrie survey and the J.H. Cole survey, that's how and why I'm be using this height in future, and it does match the band with which Petrie is provided. But working like that to try and get those, working out the proportions in there, well, we do need a standard baseline, and that's what I'll be working from in the future. So this is a very niche topic and very niche data, but for those who are interested in this type of stuff, it applies to all levels of examining the knowledge, the textbooks of stone, and the symphony of coincidence that comes into these features. So with that, yes, very, very narrow range of interest in regards to this. No, yes, I shouldn't say. Anyway, that's this height. This is a very good one to be working off, and in future, this is what I will be working off. So cheers, have a good one, SGD.